Hello, hello, everyone. It is Coach Tommy. We are live, Smashing Plastic Podcast, and we have Connor Dickerson, who I believe is probably somewhere not in Florida as we speak right now, I would imagine. We'll find out where Connor's at, unfortunately, due to the weather. But Connor, do me a favor, introduce yourself, tell everybody your handles, who you are, and then we'll kind of
Yeah.
take it from there.
Yeah, I should have corrected you first that it's Derrickson, but so many people do that. Even
Derrickson,
even
Connor
even when I
Derrickson.
even when I tell, but yeah, escaped Milton, and we were at my in-laws for a few days for evacuation in like North Central Florida, and now we're at my parents' house here in Virginia.
Okay.
Just because we don't have power or drinkable water right now, so we escaped.
Yeah,
Uh,
there's
but yeah,
nothing fun about battling no power, that's for sure. Definitely
yeah, it's
nothing.
been
Hopefully,
It's been wild,
brutal.
dude. It's hot. It's just hot.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
worst part. Like I can deal with anything else, but yeah. At that pickleball trainers, my handles. I train amateurs and professionals in pickleball around the country, remotely through an app, in person, and been doing it about 3 years now. So that's a quick little
Awesome.
synopsis.
Connor, what is your background so that people don't think that you just woke
Yeah,
up one day with a plastic ball and a paddle? What's your
yeah.
background and where did that come from?
Yeah, so I started I started as a strength and conditioning coach, working in like the collegiate sector. Went to school for it, did some internships at different universities, small schools, bigger schools, Sacred Heart University in Connecticut, Salisbury University, William Penn University. Um, did a graduate assistantship at Weber International University. Just worked with a bunch of different sports, right? Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, tennis. And then I started working for the Minnesota Twins back in 2019, 2018, 2018, no, 2017. Wow, 2017. And yeah, I worked for them for about 3 years and I was looking to get out of baseball. It's kind of like what I always wanted to do was be in baseball. And then after some time in there, I was like, it's not what it's all cracked out to be. Was looking to get out, got out, started doing more personal training and whatnot, just in person and remotely on my own. And then um, stumbled across pickle around 2021 and 2022, and then I got approached by Catherine Brento to be her trainer, and then the rest was history.
Wow.
I started traveling with her on the road and training people in person, remotely, and I was like, I just, I went all in. Like 6 months into like working with her and being at every PPA tour event with her, and I was like, all right, this is who I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be that pickleball champ. There's no one doing what I'm doing right now. It's like I'm gonna own this. Uh, yeah, so that's kind of how it's been. I've been, working in pickle for I guess the last 3 years or so.
Wow. So when you're, and for a lot of our listeners, Catherine Parenzo is, she's, what, I mean, easily top three, right? Right now, probably top two. You know, I mean, female in the world.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's kind of like always been the I guess an arguing point is, if she's like two or
Right.
three, um, and I guess that's up for debate. It was like she's top
She's
three.
an animal. She's an absolute animal and an
Yeah,
absolute stud. Every time that I've had the
yeah,
privilege of watching her, she's about as fundamentally solid. But one of the
true.
things that I do appreciate more so about her that I can lean into you about is her athleticism. Like she truly is legitimately a star athlete. I mean, she's a
Yeah,
beast.
yeah, she does well. When she came to me, she didn't really have any, I guess, like any structured background in strength conditioning, speed, agility, just kind of training as a whole. Um, but she was already like super
Right.
athletic, obviously, right? Like, so it's like, how can what buckets do we need to fill to make her better on the court? So that's kind of what we did, and um, she's playing great, and that's like the goal for someone like at her
Sure.
age, playing at her level. Like it's not like she's old, but she's definitely not
Right.
young. Like being 30, 31. How can she, maximize and play the sport that we all love as long as possible? And that's the same with, with just about anybody. It's like how good can we make you acutely, as well as like how can we, set yourself up for longevity here in
I
the
love
sport.
that. I think, as a coach and having, and especially in because I too have a baseball background. And one of the things that I have to have realistic conversations with our parents a lot about is to take a baseball player that is a five and to make them a nine is an unrealistic thing. Like it's truly not something that,
Sure.
is
Yeah.
realistic. And for you to be able to have that conversation with like a Catherine Parenzo, for instance, she's the hierarchy of hierarchy, right? Like this is pinnacle of what professional
Yeah.
pickleball is. And for somebody like that to still be seeking like, hey, how do I get better? If our
Sure.
listeners,
Mhm.
including your followers and stuff, can understand that if that lady who is top two in the world is seeking to get better, then how
Yeah.
much can a 3-0 or a 3-5 or the 4-0 or the
Yeah.
4-5, simply
Yeah.
improve by having one, a game plan of, okay, here's a clear, consistent goal of what I realistically want to do. For a 3-0 to play
Yeah.
Catherine next weekend in the PPA is an unrealistic goal. But a 3-0 to become a 4-0
Mhm.
and be able to play pickleball 3-4 times a week without hurting, I
Yeah.
think that's a logical goal that you as a trainer
Yeah.
probably realistically can lean into and talk. And I'd love for you to kind of, how do you do that, right? Like, how do you have a logical conversation and how do you evaluate where your athlete is, no matter what their background is and where they can go? And
Yeah.
what do you feel like is your superpower in order to do that?
Yeah, it's definitely different with every athlete, right? Like, so let's take like another athlete, like let's take
Okay.
Anna for example. Anna, I started working with Anna Bright, I guess about a year ago now almost, and she you're trying to make the best better, and it's like, what buckets need filling, right? Is it an agility bucket, a speed? Like, do you need first step quickness? Are you getting fatigued on the court? Is it conditioning? Is it, like what buckets are already full and overflowing, and what needs to be filling, and how can we fill those ones that are relatively empty? That's kind of like where it starts and where it begins. And for them, it's just having conversations of like helping them understand at that level that the margins are so small and that like getting X% better is can really pay dividends,
Right.
right? Because like the margins are just so astronomically small that you need to maximize every part of your diet, your nutrition, your conditioning, your fitness, everything. Because if you're not doing it, somebody else is, right? And like one point matters, getting to one extra ball, getting to a lob that someone, those little things matter. Um, to an extent, and just on the flip side, it's like talking to a 3-0, like, I used to say this expression a lot that, like, doesn't train, like, just plays a bunch of pickleball, like, and it's maybe they're out of shape. It's like, they could look at a barbell or a dumbbell and they could get
Right.
better, right? Like, so it's like you're gonna go from it's easy for you to go from 3-0 to a 3-5 just or 4-0 just by
Sure.
training and having a good regimen and taking care of your body and just being in better shape, not getting exhausted after the first or second game. Um, so it's really just like kind of like on our first calls, is like understanding where they're at, where they're coming to me at, and like what's realistic and for them, right? Like what do they want to achieve, and then like maybe pulling them back or like setting realistic objective goals for them.
I think it's great, and there's so many points that are in there, and I hope and pray that folks are kind of paying attention to this. But would you agree? And you and I can, would you agree the fastest way for somebody to improve their pickleball game is by their fitness?
Yeah, to an extent. I guess it depends on who it is. For many, I would say yes. For some, I would say no. I would say like, like for the most part, the best way to get better at your sport is play your sport. Right. Like so it's like if you're really focused on your fitness and you're playing, like whatever, let's call it twice a week and you're training off court 7 days a week, it's like depending on where you are, unless you're like, maybe obese or really heavy or, like that might be your limiting
Sure.
factor, right? Like your weight is your limiting factor, your strength is your limiting factor. Uh, so it kind of depends where you're at. If you're like, yeah, it just really depends where you're at. But like fitness definitely is just more like an under or an overlooked piece to it. It's just like people just get addicted. That's what I would say.
Otherwise,
Like
just play.
people, it's
Yep.
just I did
Otherwise,
it,
just
right? Like we
want to
all
play.
did. We just yeah, I just want to play, just want to play, just want to play. And the only reason they don't, maybe they like working out, they like training, they just want to play though. That just takes away from their
Right.
playing time, So it's like at some point they're like just most people come to me and they're like because they feel and they see the plateau starting to happen because all they do is play, 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 play. And it's like, all right, like let's take a step back, let's assess where we are, let's start training, let's have a good plan, like cut back on all the crappy rec games that you're playing and play the good rec games and start some drilling and doing some off-court training and just kind of setting them up for success.
I love it. And just so that our listeners know, I'm actually, so you can speak into this, but I'm actually, not only am I a buddy of yours, but I'm a client of yours. So Connor Derrickson has
Yeah.
literally, I have been in your training program now for what, close to a month, almost 3 weeks now. I think we're leading up to 3 weeks now.
Yeah.
And it's a day-to-day regimen. It's a day-to-day program. It's a follow-up. It's a, it's a constant communication of what's going
Yeah.
on, what's not going on. So it's not like, hey, I see you and then I don't see you. Like there's day-to-day check-ins on everything that we're doing. And even though I'm a coach and legitimately a professional pickleball instructor, can automatically already tell the differences on not just certain balls that I can get to, but
Yeah.
the confidence knowing that I'm lifting on a daily basis, I'm stretching on a daily basis to get more mobile. It provides such an act of mental sharpness that, in all honesty, it's just an attaboy that makes you by default play better on a court, right?
Right.
Because like you said earlier, I know that I'm doing things across the court that other people aren't doing. Just like in baseball, right? So
Mhm.
we talk about this we
Big
talk
part.
about this in baseball all the time, or especially playoff baseball right now, right? Like every pitch is a rally. So one walk is all of a sudden a rally. And I love that because that's really close to how pickle is, right? Because every point realistically can be the difference between you having a rally and not having a rally, you winning a game, not winning a game, you winning a set, not winning a set. And I
Mhm.
feel like if our physicalness can be one of the eliminations that we can take out of that. So for instance, okay, now I'm not out of breath,
Mm.
right? Like it's an 11-11, we're tie, I'm not out of breath. That's a really big deal. You know what I mean? A really big deal.
Big. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a big deal, and I mean, like, that just makes me think of, like, if you look at the game even before I got started working into it, which is, not long, right? 3-ish years. But you look at the game back in like 2019, 2018, like the game is
Oh
totally
man.
different. Just like if you look at baseball, like a very long
Sure.
time ago,
Sure.
right? Like the game is
Right.
different. Like the game changes, and like right now it's just evolving in front of our eyes. Like just not obviously because of like equipment, like
Sure.
paddle, but like um just athleticism and overall. It's just like these like a 5-0 5 years ago is totally different than a 5-0 now, right?
100%.
Like
100%.
a 5-0 like right now would have been, on the pro tour doing well back
I
then.
can see it, and I don't know how much rec, Connor, that you have that you get to participate in, but I can tell you just from coaching and teaching classes of like 101, 102 as early as a year to 2 years ago, to now going on to the same rec courts that I played on a year ago, they're better. Like they're legitimately, and
Yeah.
it's not the fact that it's not the fact that I'm losing skill set. It's the fact that the skill set is, like you said, continually
Mm,
increasing even at the rec level leaps and beyond
mhm.
faster than what it was 5 years ago. I mean, it like every single
Yeah,
week you have the ability to look
yeah,
at somebody on tour and be like, dude, that guy or that girl is going to be an absolute rock star, like legit. And
yeah,
then the same thing goes in our rec to where now we've got kids that are, I don't know, 17. I got a 16-year-old ball player that plays for me that I am telling you right now is probably the number one 16-year-old in the state of South Carolina. I would put him up against anybody there is, and that dude has played pickleball for less than a year because
yeah,
he plays at the sport that you and I are playing now. You know what I mean? And he didn't have to
yeah,
learn the old way. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like you said with baseball, like it's a
yeah,
different game
yeah,
now. It's just different.
yeah, yeah, and it's cool. It's cool to see. It's cool to see, like, in that same instance of, like, these athletes that are coming in too. It's just like it's not like the heavier, more less athletic players are just kinda getting phased out. It's just like they're just studs coming in. They're like multi-sport. They're not just tennis players. They're just multi-sport,
Yep.
baseball, football, soccer, all these play basketball, and they're coming over. They're just like, whoa, these guys. They're just learning good habits straight from the beginning. And it's
I
cool to
love it.
see.
Your home is more than just a place. It's your pride, your sanctuary. Its exterior is the first impression it gives to the world, and a shield that protects you from the elements. But over time, weather and wear can dull its shine and compromise its safety. That's where we come in. At First Class Painting and Restoration, we bring your property back to life with our premium painting services. Using state-of-the-art tools and techniques, we deliver exceptional results on time and within budget. As a local award-winning company with over 15 years of experience, we're known for our family reputation and unique culture. We're not just painters, we're craftsmen who care about our community and the people we serve. We're committed to bettering our customers, employees, and community through the fun trade of painting. So choose first-class painting and restoration and experience the difference of a company that cares. Because making your house feel like home is our first-class service.
Well, we're gonna change gears now a little bit. Talk to me about a little bit on what you feel like. We're now what, in October. We're heading towards 2025, the
Yeah.
miracle time frame for a guy like yourself, right? Like the new year. I'm assuming your phone and your messages
Yeah.
start blowing up of, "Hey, Connor, this is the year. I'm coming up."
Yeah.
Can you bring our audience into, let's navigate for a few minutes on why do I have to wait to 2025 in order to get better? And what do you recommend right now if I'm listening to Connor? How do I get a game plan, Connor, to get more healthy, better in shape, and a better picklebar as we're heading, as a pickler, as we're heading into 2025?
Yeah, I mean, most time when people come to me, and you have the eager person, like, let's take, like, the 2025, like, let's start a new routine. People come to me, all throughout the year, and they might go from 0 and they wanna go to 100. They're very eager. They're going from, like, not training to, like, "Hey, I wanna work out," and I wanna work out 5 to 7
Sure.
days a week, and what I say to those people and to the people that are looking to start hot in 2025 is the same thing, is I usually pull them back a little bit and, like, let's start creating wins right now, and let's do it as soon as possible. So whatever that win looks like for you, we're gonna establish that right now. And we're gonna start there. So that, for an example, if you're starting and you want to train 5 7 days a week, and you're going from 0, we're not going to do that. We're going to start easy, like whatever that looks like for you. Maybe it's twice a week with 20-minute walks every day, and 2 sessions where we're training, and it's 30-minute sessions. We want to stack wins. I don't want to throw full 60, 45-minute workouts at you. You hit 3 of them, feel like a failure because you
Sure.
missed 2, and then the next week you might hit 4, and then the next week you might hit 2 of them, and then you just keep failing, feeling like you're failing, and then by week 4 you're hitting 1, and then you just stop coming after all. I'd rather just slow build this. Even if we have to do let's do something every day. I like that. Like whether it's stretching, whether it's walking, whether it's training hard, let's do something every day. That's pushing you towards your goal. Uh, so what I like to call that is just like stacking wins. I just want us to start stacking wins in your favor so you can build some momentum right now. Um, so then we can kind of build off of that, build off of that, build off of that. And then, 2 months from now, we might be at 5 days a week like you wanted to be, feeling great, feeling mentally strong, right? Like you're doing stuff that nobody else is doing. And I want to stack wins. So start doing something. You got every day you wake up, you have an opportunity it's a choice, right? To do something, whether it's you start with a walk or you start with a full workout. But let's start
I
stacking
love it.
wins.
I absolutely love it. And one of the things that that you are definitely helping me with, and you can talk a little bit in this. I know this is your passion, but talk nutrition and how vital that is for for fueling the body to be able
Yeah,
to start programming seeing food as fuel for the goals that you want. So whether it's the 2-0 or the 6-0, what does that look like, and how do you help, your
yeah,
base, these beloved followers and these soon to be followers of Connor Derrickson? How do we do that? How do we do that through nutrition?
yeah. Yeah, so like you said, like we try to view it as fuel, and we view it not in this like negative relationship of where like there's do's and don'ts. I can eat certain things, I can't eat certain things. Some things are bad for me, some things are good for me. It's not like that. It's more of like, let's eat the things. We try and follow the 80-20 rule. And I've preached this forever of like 80% of the time, we're going to eat things that push us towards our goal, whole foods, single ingredient foods, things that are fruits, vegetables, meats, and 20% of the time, we're gonna do stuff for leisure and things that we crave and give into those things, because this isn't, like, 1, the end of the world. 2, we're trying to if you wanna have a beer, like, we're trying to stay
Sure.
sane, totally fine. Like, it's not like we're not trying to you're not a bodybuilder, like, trying to compete, like, we have athletic endeavors.
Right.
So, but what we do is, like, our main goal is, like, let's increase our protein sources, right? Like, so or let's make sure that we're getting enough protein on a regular basis. One, for like the satiety factor, so you feel full. Because if you don't eat enough protein, you're going to eat more carbs. It's just how it kind of works typically, because you give off different hormones of ghrelin. Makes you feel like you're even more hungry, and then you crave carbs. So we want to make sure that we're getting enough protein on a daily basis. For that reason, and to just support our activity needs of playing pickleball and training. And second is typically we want to focus on the source of what you're eating, not necessarily like counting every single calorie. I want to focus on where's this food coming from? Is it coming from minimally processed foods or highly processed foods? And how can we decrease the highly processed foods? How can we increase the single origin foods of meats, fruits, vegetables, those kinds of things? Because we just want you to feel your best. I want you to feel your best when you go into the gym, and I want you to feel your best when you're going on the court. And you're going to do that by, having enough protein and eating as much single origin, single ingredient foods as possible. And then, depending on the person, we'll find ways to manipulate that and kind of meet you where you're at, so that we can kind of do the same thing of stacking different wins each week, each day to kind of progress. Like we're not trying to like cut everything out and not eat any carbs and eliminate everything and then do that for a certain amount of weeks. There's no like crash diet. It's just how can we create
Right.
habits that sustain forever? So like in 3 years from now, you're not thinking about it. You just
You just
you
do it.
just
Yeah, it's just
eat
part. It's just part of your day to day.
steak and potatoes and broccoli. Yeah, it's just part of
Yeah,
your day to day.
I love.
So that's what we're trying to do. We're
I
trying to
think one of the biggest things that unfortunately in this information age that we live in is there's a lot of false information, right? So then people, the deal. You get enough
course.
of the false information, then or enough of the clouded information that you just kind of give up and you don't even know what angle to go to. So having a coach like yourself, I think, is a big
Yeah.
deal to having at least somebody that, and I can attest to this. If I send you a text message, you answer. Like that's a big deal for me to where I'm like, hey, dude, what do you
Yeah.
think about this? And I mean that from the workout all the way to, hey, dude, my freaking ankle's killing me today. Like, we need to modify my
Mhm.
bench routine or whatever. But I do think the nutrition is where a lot of people, including myself, including the athletes that are leaning on me for helping them get, stronger, you can really get confused on, am I a carb guy? Am I a protein guy? So I love the 80-20 that you talk about. I do love the idea of, and you can lean into this too. What's your thoughts on the blood work thing, right? Like, do you think that when do you have to take the time to go see, a nutritionist or go get some
Yeah.
panels done to see, okay, how does your body operate as opposed to why is Connor's body and Tommy's body different? And what do we do in order to make that better?
Mhm. Yeah, it's a good question. So I typically like it's like I don't wanna put, like, chicken before the egg, right? So, like, if you can't push if you're eating, like, fast food and
Right,
crap all day and then you wanna go get blood work because you don't feel good, it's like, well, you ate
right,
shit all
right,
day, obviously, you
right,
don't feel good. So, it's like, we'll try and, like, do those things first. Like, if we're eating pretty solid, eating a lot of single ingredient foods and you have a pretty decent diet, and maybe something, like, typically doesn't sit well, or you feel like you have like a gluten disorder or issue or different things like that, maybe it's time to go, get something checked out in that sense, or like dairy or gluten. Uh, that's when I would definitely recommend it. And then two, if you're like doing all the right things and you just feel like, oh, like I don't feel good with carbs, or I feel like I'm better at like super high fat and low carb. Maybe you kind of like there's certain people like I've recommended to different like functional medicine people is what they're called, where they'll study your blood,
right.
stool, saliva, everything, and just kind of give you something that's they'll do some kind of protocol with you. It's like a little outside of my realm for sure, but I think you got to kind of like get everything right in the house first before you start looking outward.
I love that. I think you're absolutely right to where I think it's so we live in a society that just wants to quick and get a microwave fix and and go somewhere and get a shot or get somewhere and get
Yeah,
a
for
pill
sure.
and be done with it, in 2 weeks. And
Yeah,
unfortunately, the health side of that, especially if you want something like you said that's sustainable, but also that
yeah,
you can physically tell the difference, right? Between somebody that is like
yeah,
legitimately makes a turn to get into health mode. Just simple things like
yeah,
water, right? Like legitimately intake of
yeah, yeah.
water.
Hmm.
It sounds crazy to me, but that's one of the biggest differences that I personally have seen and that I personally do that I just honestly I think I was just dehydrating my whole entire self. Like, it really does matter your water
Sure.
intake on a daily day basis and nobody talks about it. Like nobody talks about it. It's
Yeah.
insane, but nobody talks about it.
It's not sexy, like half the stuff I talk about really isn't sexy at all, like longevity, sustainability, eating like the way you do, like it's not like sexy is like keto's the only way. Whoa, that
Right.
catches your eye. Or like, saying things like that, or shirtless pics and like eating keto, like different things like that. It's like 80-20. That's not sexy. That's not catching the
Right.
eyes, but it's gonna
Yeah,
make
and
the
it's
host.
sustainable. It's funny how the sexy stuff is very rarely sustainable, but the
Yeah.
sustainable stuff nobody talks about.
Yeah,
we could go into that
100%.
for hours and hours about every single topic there is, but I definitely wanted to get your input on what you thought on, basically when
Sure.
they need to look into that. To turn the page, talk to me about where you see pickle going. Like realistically, just for food for thought, because people don't know this, but you're on the tour weekly. You've got some of the stars that you work with. Where do you see this crazy thing going, man? I'd love to hear Connor's prediction on where we're at a year from now,
Yeah.
2 years from now, 5 years from now. What
Yeah.
is this crazy game going to, man?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess, like, you've seen it in the last 2, 3, 5 years, like, it continue to get more and more athletic, right? Like, the players continue to get faster, they get more agile, the paddles get
Right.
hotter. I don't think that they're gonna get any hotter than that, but, uh, I continue to see, like, pickleball only players coming over for the most part, so it's, like, not just tennis converts, which we're starting to
Sure.
see now, but what I would like to see is, like, so that it can become, because it's a great recreational sport, it's a great, participation sport, but it's not a great,
It's not.
viewer
Yeah,
sport,
it's not.
right? Like, not many
It's
people
not.
watch, like, like, you go out to my rec courts that I play at, and, whatever, half of them even know there's a pro tour, and then 30% of that half even watch the pro
Right.
tour, right? So it's like, how can we increase the viewership? And I want, to be able to show people, like, because when you watch it on TV, and if you don't really know pickleball, you're like, "When I play, I look just like them. I look just like Dan," and like, that's, like, not doesn't look any different, right? Like, it's hard for us to, like, visually on camera to, like, show how good they really are,
Right.
right? Like, so finding ways to do that, whether it's, like, you move the poles a little wider, just like in any sport, like baseball, they play with wood bats in the major
Right.
league, and the fences are a lot bigger. NBA, the three-point line is a lot longer. I don't know if, like, it's a different court size, but, like, moving the poles a little bit longer or wider kinda makes it so that, like, it's a little bit more difficult to hit the ATP, so you can kinda, like, you can roll the forehand and the backhand harder, as well as it's more difficult to get, so it's just, like, you're gonna see athleticism
Sure.
more, I think more movement and more, like, crazy, like, when you watch the women's game, everybody loves watching the women's game. You watched that final yesterday, it was
Right.
insane. Annalie and Catherine versus Rachel and Anna, it's just like they're just everywhere. It's just, like, constant craziness, and I think, like, more of that would be sick to see at the pro level.
Yeah, I think you're
Would be
absolutely right to where, like, at the end of the day, the kids thing for me is it that's the secret for me. Like, where does that, right? Like,
yeah,
where do you get to the 10, the 12, the 14U? Me and you were baseball guys, so as you know, travel baseball is I mean, it's you know
yeah,
what I mean? It's a empire, right? Like legitimately bona fide an empire.
it's an empire. An NFL.
How
Oh, yeah.
and what do you see Pickle doing in that world of juniors? Where does that go?
I can only see them imagine them doing it like tennis juniors, which I didn't grow up in that world at all,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
grew up in the
Yeah,
travel
I didn't
baseball
either. Yeah.
world, but, like, I can only imagine it being like that, having some kind of, like, I know the PPA plans this coming year in 2025 to have a more bona fide juniors tour, as well as, like, I think a challenger tour is what they're gonna call it, so, like, kinda like, instead of, like, players pretty much going to the APP and playing, like, that side, they would rather have them in-house playing the PPA, so instead of, like, if you're not playing the PPA, if you don't, like, make a main draw or a qualifier, you play on,
Sure.
like, the challenger tour, which is kinda like APP level-ish players or maybe a little lower. So kinda having like that, a challenger tour, and then maybe like a junior, so, like, all within the PPA, you can kinda, like, work your way up. Um, I don't know, like, I don't know. That's a good question because it's not as structured as, like, travel
And
baseball
he
or,
and
club
you're
volleyball.
exactly right. For me, and this is Coach Tommy's personal opinion. I feel like the angle, Connor, should be the MLP angle. I feel like if they really wanted to create a draw, you would have the ability to create
Yeah,
the micro teams of those MLP teams, and that's how you build
sure,
your travel programs. You know what I mean? Because then it gives you the ability to where the kid that's in Texas, you know what I mean, can play for the Ranchers, you know what I mean? And now all of a sudden he's part of the minor league system, we'll call that because you and I come from that background. That's now all of a sudden he's a
sure.
part of that. How cool would that be to where you've got 8U, 10U, 12U, 14U kids that are wearing Texas Rancher stuff playing in a MILP event, you know what I mean, as opposed to
That's
I
smart.
just feel like it creates way much more of a bandwagon and it becomes way more of a viewer sport because I'm like you. At the end of the day, if you really want it to get big time, it's got to be better for viewers. And MLP, if you haven't
Yep.
been, and I know you have been, but a lot of reviewers haven't been, you need to go because the MLP event is just different.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's so different. You know what I mean? And for me, as a coach and as I'm a purveyor, hopefully, of junior pickleball. I love the junior
Yeah.
angle for MLP, man. I feel like that's where you can build teams, and I feel like you can absolutely get some moms and dads to pull,
Yeah.
to pull up the tent, you know what I mean, and do the whole travel ball thing with pickle.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm not familiar very in depth, but or if any of the listeners viewers are, but like club soccer, like
Yep.
Barcelona, that's exactly
Yep.
what you're speaking of. Like
Yep.
they have it, all the way down
All the way to 6U, right? Like all the way to 6U Barcelona.
And
Yeah,
it's
100%.
yeah, which is cool because it builds that fan base, it builds a community, it builds trust, and it's like you're repping the gear. It's cool. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I feel
I
like
like
that's
that
one of
play.
the angles that tennis, and that's why I think and this is just my opinion, and there's a lot of smarter people on this pod, but I think that's one of the biggest reasons why tennis traction has really not gripped because it's really hard to follow one person. It's really hard to follow two people, you know what I mean? But you've got a team or a city or a state, and now all of a sudden you've got,
Yeah.
stands and stadiums full of people that are all backing, you know what I mean, a lot of the same commonality. And I feel like if Pickle really wanted to go to the next level, you got to figure a way to team that thing up, man, and call it a day. That MLP is a really good angle. Let's do this.
It's good to see him under the same house.
Absolutely. I think, and as the cities grew, you know what I mean, you could have a bigger base. You'd have you'd have so many opportunities to create all these individual teams that could feed into MLP. That would be kind of cool. Give me a tip, man. What if you had one tip as a coach that you could take that these people are going to turn this phone off because I don't have much more time with you. What's one tip that Coach Connor wants to leave with our viewers here at Smashing Plastic?
If you really want to get better, stop playing so many rec games.
Ooh,
Stop the rec games and start training off court.
okay. I love that. I definitely love that.
Most people that just it's mainly just from like conversations with potential clients or clients that most people it's just like I always ask like how often are you playing? What does the play look like? And it's like 90% of the play, let's say they're playing 5 days a week, and like 4 to 5 days of it is all rec games. It's like you're gonna plateau by just playing rec games because most of them, if you're a 4-0, you're playing with like some 3-5s and or some of it, and you're never playing with anybody above you. It's like just start drilling and just start training off
Right.
court. Like you're gonna get astronomically better there instead of just playing like trash rec games. If you really want to get better, right? If it's just rec and you're having fun and social, like by all means.
Yeah, I
Stop playing
think
trash rec.
one of the things that I'll add to that, which is a great tip, is one of the things that I've noticed a lot of folks do, and I'm sure Connor, you see the same thing, is once you start finding those players that you feel like either stretch you or make you better, you kind of start creating like a little group text chat of, hey, Connor, you want to come play with me on Thursday at 10 o'clock when nobody's there. I feel like those are really smart, savvy ways that you can develop a little pocket of we'll call likeness in players, but I do think you got to be super safe to make sure that you get some players that honestly are better than you. You know what I mean? Like you need to play with some players that are better than you if you really want to get better. That's for sure.
Yeah, typically, and it's like, I've always been a fan of like not if I'm like let's call it a 4-5. I'm not gonna exclude the 4-0 either. Like especially if like they're like striving to get better. But if it's like someone that's like not as good as you and they're like they don't really give a crap, it's like no, I'm not inviting you. You know what I mean? Like, so it's kind of cool to have like both sides of the spectrum.
I think that's great. And it's a great way to grow the game. You know what I mean? Like it's a really good way to be a good ambassador of the game. You know what I mean? To be, nobody wants another tool on the pickleball court, right? Like we want to aim for our sport to not be that, you know what I mean? So I love that tip.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't thank you enough. I can't believe it's already been 30 minutes. I could sit here and talk shop with you all night long. I'm thoroughly impressed so far with your program. I cannot recommend it enough. Connor, one more time before you hang up with Smashing Plastic, tell them where they can find you. So if they're looking for a pickleball coach, let them know where they can find you.
Yeah, pretty much everything goes down on Instagram. I have a YouTube as well, but Instagram is at that pickleball trainer. That pickleball trainer got in early enough to get that handle. No one can take it from me. And YouTube, same thing. That pickleball trainer with a little dash at the end. But yeah.
Hey, thank you so much, man. Connor, you're great, and we will look forward. Obviously, I'll be hollering at you tomorrow. You have a great night, and I can't wait for you to get back over to Florida, man. I know you're ready to get back home.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. We'll see you, dude.